Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. I love all Amber, and today I am going to conduct another reaction video, blind reaction video, towards the topic of Meet Introverted Intuition, NI, made by Denzel. So let's see what we can learn from this video, and I hope you guys enjoy. And I know I'm going to like the video, so
Honestly, I believe it's all the same. There's a through line that goes through all of it, and our collective unconscious tells us the whole story. And as I've sat here, I've already envisioned everything that's going to happen in this video, all of the things that you're going to be thinking, all of the things that are going to occur, what I'm going to say. I've had more than enough time to be able to prepare and think about it, as everybody else might have did their own videos, of course. There's a reason why I'm always lagging behind. I do take the longest time to plan and to think. But I'd like to think that it's always all worth it. Huh. I hope that you enjoy this video. I already predict that many of you are going to click out of it because, unlike functions such as SE or TE, I'm actually probably the most complex and least straightforward function. But if you take the time to actually try to understand me, then I'm sure that you could actually see how I operate in your everyday life. Because even if you have introverted intuition as a dominant or as an inferior or in your shadow functions, you still have introverted intuition. We all need in our life. We all need some sort of vision. We all have deep meanings and deep readings that we do. We all have dreams. We all interpret things. We all understand symbols and archetypes. And if you're willing to actually explore the depths of the unconscious with me, have a seat.
sorry. I had to stop the video because he said something very interesting that I may want to disagree with kindly.
Actually see how I operate in your everyday life. Because even if you have introverted intuition as a dominant or as an inferior or in your shadow functions, you still have introverted intuition. We all need in our life. We all need some sort of vision. We all have deep meanings and deep readings that we do. We all have dreams. We all interpret things. We all understand symbols and archetypes. And if you're willing,
Okay. So I think he just said we all understand archetypes. Like he said, NI is complex, cognitive to understand, but in my opinion, I think that is the same way with any other cognitive functions. I think SC can also be complex. But just as all the functions can be complex, they can also be simple. Uh, as I started my channel and as I do my own personal research into archetypes and more, I came to the realization that most people don't understand archetypes in the way Carl Jung understand archetypes. Although that might be an unfair argument to say or something to say because we can all have different interpretations of our archetype. But with the different understanding of archetypes, can we really say we understand archetypes? Especially when the understanding of archetype appears vague. Before I did my own personal research into Carl's Jung interpretation of archetypes, I may have given a circular argument, but you can see where I'm trying to dissect. But let's keep going.
You actually explore the depths of the unconscious with me and have a seat, and I'll do my best to bring the heavens down to the material realm. I think this is the part where the intro begins. For us to take a moment to talk about what I like to call the unconscious, the subconscious, the collective unconscious, the shadow, if you will. Now, to do this, I'm going to actually be using a trick that many of you probably already know about. And if you watch TV shows, then you'll actually know that there's this thing called ink blot tests. Now, when we do ink blot tests, really, it's just a splash of ink that goes onto a piece of paper, and then they like to pretty much use that idea to understand what's going on in a person's subconscious. So, whatever you see in the ink is going to tell you a lot about what you see in general. And I feel like that is, again, a really good peek into the subconscious. So, as I cut this deck of tarot cards, I would actually like to start us off by giving us a very, very brief tarot reading to just kind of get the energy of what we're about to be looking into and tie in some themes into the rest of this video because I'm a function that's very tapped into the spiritual realm.
Oops.
I'm a function that does not rely solely on the material. And I'd actually like to marry the material and the spiritual. The material being SE, because that
Oh, this is a good opportunity for me to read something uh from one of Carl Jung's book. So the book that I grab is titled Psychological Types or The Psychology of Individuation by C.G. Jung. And Denzel did not say anything wrong at all. I just want to uh, include the book into this conversation. So let me see if I can find the page. In the meantime, I'm gonna let this video play on some more because he said some interesting things.
Siamese twin, and then the immaterial or the subconscious being me. So, with all that being said, I'm going to draw three cards. And then after that, I'm going to draw out a single card from this oracle deck. And as we look at it, we're going to observe what the symbolism and what themes will be woven in through the rest of this video. One, two, three. And then before we flip those over, I'm going to take some time to also cut.
Okay, I'm trying to make it fast. That countdown was for me to find the page that I'm looking for too, as well. And I am losing, but I'm getting close. Let me see. I wish I put in sticky notes because I know I read this page before and I'm having difficulty finding it. Carl Jung stated, as a rule, the intuitive stops at perception. Perception is his principal problem. And in the case of a productive artist, the shaping of perception. As a NI dominated person, I like to use tarot cards in the past, and I like to interact tarot cards. Now, of course, I don't treat tarot cards as a divinity tool. I try not to. But tarot cards, in my opinion, I see tarot cards as a psychological tool to explore my psyche and my mind, or to consider other factors that I did not consider before. Tarot cards can be very fun. So I find it very memorable when Denzel brought out tarot cards as a guide to helping him explain what is an I. Because let me read this again. As a rule, the intuitive stops at perception. Perception is his principal problem. And in the case of a productive artist, the shaping of perception. And in a way, tarot cards helps, at least from my experience, tarot cards helps me shape a perception based on the questions I ask. Like at the end of the day, I use tarot cards for the Monday stuff too sometimes. Like, I don't know, let's see, outfits, how I want to dress. And then I flip a card and it gives me inspiration. It helps me put a shape. It's like a guidance of a shaping towards the perception. And any other types can use tarot cards. It's not only tarot cards for INFJs, INTJs, ENFJs, ENTJs. Tarot cards can be used by any personality types. And I don't know what Cole Young meant when he stated as a rule the intuitive has a problem with their perception. But from my perspective, we are concerned with the perception. We are concerned with the perception, therefore, we will have problems with it. But that doesn't mean we should not take into account what Carl Jung says. So I'm very happy to add this to the conversation. So let's go on with this video.
This deck and see what spirit is going to give us through here. And before I alarm a lot of people, and before we get into the paradigm shift talk and everything, I want to at least explain that what I have going on here is not something for any of you, especially those of you with Christian faith, to be alarmed by. I understand from your paradigm that this could be seen as very demonic in nature, but I can assure you that you're safe. Also, at least recommend that you watch until the end of this video, even if you have to break it into parts. I already know that many of you won't, and that's fine. I excuse you in peace. But for those of you who do stick to the end, I think that this might actually change how you view your everyday life. And for those of you who already understand a lot of this, I think that it's going to allow you to see even more how you are not alone and how you are not crazy, even if the rest of the world thinks that you are. So let's get into this. Ah, wow, you guys would not believe this. But here we have
Let me see what he said. Oh my goodness. Does that say the turtle? We got the high priestess, the hermit, and the star. Oh shoot.
the high priestess, the hermit, the star.
You know what's so funny? This is my sequent how do you pronounce that word? Sequence. I'll just put it on the screen. But this is my moment of that because not too long ago I saw a turtle. Yes. And it was walking on land by the playground and it was far away from the water. And it looked just like the turtle on the card. I did my I search up on Google if I should grab the turtle and put it near the water, and it was the wrong question. Not the wrong question, but it was the wrong action to take because it was a turtle that needs to be on land at the moment. So, and not drown, basically. So I left that turtle alone, but it was very nice and pleasant to see the turtle.
And then the sea turtle as our theme for the drawing. Now, throughout this video, I'm going to be tying these in, but essentially, just to make it a little bit more clear, the high priestess is actually a great symbol when it comes to thoughts of the divine, thoughts of
What makes this moment very significant for me as an NI dominant? Because I did Google what if an INFJ or if NI or an INFJ were a tarot card, what would we be or something? And for some reason, it is the high priestess. Like it is that. So he he could not pull a better card than that. So
what's going on behind the veil, intuition and hidden knowledge in the subconscious mind. This card is often associated with wisdom, secrets, and the ability to see beyond the surface. It aligns perfectly with the deep introspective nature.
sorry, I'm pausing a lot. But basically, my point was that the high priestess is NI archetype, at least for INFJ. You can include INTJ too.
Introverted intuition, symbolizing the inner knowing and insight that NI brings. And then we have the hermit, introspection, self reflection, and the pursuit of inner truth. It represents a journey inward to seek wisdom and clarity, often requiring solitude and contemplation. This card aligns well with NI's tendency to withdraw and reflect deeply on abstract concepts and future possibilities. And then, of course, we have the star. Now, the star represents hope, and it represents inspiration and a sense of destiny. See, the star signifies clarity, vision, and guidance, and is often associated with looking towards the future with optimism and insight. I would say that this card embodies the visionary aspect of myself, highlighting its ability to see potential outcomes and guide others towards a brighter future. And then, last but not least, from the Oracle deck, we have the Sea Turtle. Now, the reason why I believe the sea turtle is very interesting here is because the sea turtle swims through the ocean and it moves quickly when it's in certain currents, but usually it's going very slowly through what we would call a symbol of the unconscious, the collective unconscious, subconscious, if you will. And that's what we're going to be diving into throughout this video. See, I'm all about the unconscious, I'm all about the subconscious. I'm all about everything that's going on without you even knowing that it's going on. Let's switch positions, shall we? Uh, okay, much better. All right, so before we get into anything more, I think I should at least tell you a little bit about my facets. So, people who have introverted intuition in their stack, especially higher up, usually have a knack for future pacing for the most likely outcome. Constant running of simulations, kind of like thinking about things that are going to happen in the future, and all the different possibilities of what could happen, and then being on the most probable thing that's going to happen there. An interest in the symbolism and esoteric, hopping into other people's perspective, and then that helps them with the trajectory of the mind, or what I would like to call also paradigm shifts, which we're going to be talking a lot about later. They tend to be out of tune with a unified reality in the material realm, mainly when SE is not integrated. They can be attentive to their own subconscious thoughts and trajectories, which is also another form of metacognition. They tend to speak in cryptic parables and metaphors. They're often reported to see in images rather than words. Of course, that's not for all NI users potentially, but it's a pattern. They like to make meaning out of things, and they like to contemplate abstract.
And I would like to say that one of the things that makes it difficult for me to type myself as a NI user was the aspect that many people who are NI users report seeing things in their mind as images rather than words. I don't see words, but I never really thought of myself as seeing images. And it makes sense. Using objective personality approach, I have feminine NI and TI. So my images will be very weak, but I will still align myself to the images or the abstract I see in my environment because of the masculine FESC. So, yes.
Such as what is life? Now, at the beginning of this video, I did a tarot reading for y'all. I drew a few cards that are highly symbolic, and then I withdrew meaning from them to be able to weave in the themes throughout this video. And it's just a way to showcase more of how I work. We're all doing this every single day. Like, for example, if I bring up to you the term fire, what do you think of? Fire itself is a symbol. When I talk about water, what are you thinking of? If I say that somebody has a fiery temperament, what does that mean to you? And what correlations do you see between fire and a person's temperament that makes them that way? What if I say somebody has a watery type of temperament? Now, what does that mean to you? Let's think about air. Let's talk about somebody who has a grounded type of temperament, very earthy in nature. Now you can see how this also has some sort of correlations to astrology. And then astrology is just a whole bunch of symbols that we put together to also create a story. These things also create what we call archetypes. And archetypes are found everywhere. So let's say, for example, I tell you that this person has a lot of a childlike archetype to them. What comes to mind? What about if I brought to you, okay, this person has a joker type of archetype? What comes to mind there? What about if I say the wise old man archetype, or a father archetype, a mother archetype, a jock, bully? All of these types of things, hero, villain, victim, these are all archetypes that we are familiar with. And even when it comes to stuff such as like a masculine versus a feminine type of energy in that way, and these are all things that we kind of intuitively understand because our mind collects patterns. And then, even if we're conscious of it or not, we are seeing these patterns and we're making meaning out of them, and then we tell these stories to ourselves. But then the thing is, even though we might experience the same reality a lot of times, which is the SE, the unified reality, we're not all taking it in and then translating that reality the same way. That's where I come into the picture. Now, there are a few ways that I show up. And I guess the simplest way that I could put this is that there are two ways. We'll say the analytic way, which is what Darianardi would consider to be a lot more assertive, a lot more aggressive, a lot more focused on.
Ooh, okay, let's see. Visionary NI versus Oracle NI. That is very interesting. I would say I'm a mixture of both, but I lean towards visionary. At least that's how I see myself. I would like to be a visionary NI, so I operate that way, but I can see moments where I can see moments where I conduct myself as an oracle NI too. So,
Sure, planning and creating a long-term type of plan focused on one vision, having like a tunnel vision, and it's very laser pointed in that sense. And then there's the more holistic side, which is more about receiving insight, allowing spirit, allowing God, allowing your ancestors, allowing your intuition, allowing nature, whatever you want to call this sort of intake of the insight that you receive throughout your day. That is what the holistic NI side is bringing. And once again, even if I'm not in your immediate stack, you are still doing this to an extent. You're still collecting, even if it's in your shadow functions. You might not be as aware of it because it's in your shadow, or it might be harder for you to access it. And you're using different things, such as extroverted intuition and introverted sensing to be able to perceive your world. But those with introverted intuition are usually the types that pretty much have thought A, and then as they go to thought B, C, D, all the way over to Q, then subconsciously their mind is like, wait a minute, how did I get from thought A to thought Q? And then it retraces its thought process till it gets right back to A. And then before you know it, then the introverted intuitive user is like, oh, now I understand the correlation between A and Q. So when somebody else now is talking and then they might mention something like G, then the introverted intuitive might be like, P? And then the person might be like, whoa, how did you know that? Are you a mind reader? Are you able to? No, not really. It's because the introverted intuitive user has taken so much time to be able to understand the pattern of their own mind that now they can understand the pattern of other people's minds. This is kind of like the illusions of when people incept seeds into somebody else's mind. They know that, okay, if I start talking about the color yellow a lot of times, before you know it, people are going to go out and they're going to start noticing every yellow car here. Let's say I have some guests over and I made a fortune cookie tailor made, uh, and they don't know.
you know how crazy this example is? It's so crazy, right? In my previous videos, I made a short video focusing on crystals, and I will show an image of my short video crystal video right now. And one of the stones, I did not specifically state it in that video. In the next video, I did. But one of the stones will have you see synchronicities. I can't pronounce today. Will have you synchronize with numbers all over the place after you look at the rock or the crystal. And I want my viewers to think about this deeper. Now, what I'm going to say next will sound crazy. Just like a person is able to like talk about yellow and then you start seeing a bunch of yellows, a crystal or a rock can have you see sequenicities or sequent you to seeing a series of numbers 777, 666, 2. And that kind of reminds me of what I've read earlier today. It's a different book. Let me see if I can find that book. This book is also by C.G. Jung, and it is titled The Undiscovered Self. And let's see, I think I was reading page 84 or 85. And what was so crazy about that is how Carl Jung mentioned how there's a subliminal aspect to the intuition, which blows my mind because I thought intuition is the subliminal, but no. There's intuition, and then there's a subliminal aspect to intuition. And I know he did not say that, or at least I didn't get to the part where he was able to synthesize sequencity se- with uh with subliminal. I didn't get to that part yet. But okay, not 85, but on page 79, he stated the perception was subliminal because the attention was engaged elsewhere, and the stimulus was not strong enough to deflect it and to reach consciousness directly. Such phenomenon are frequent in everyday life, but mostly they pass unnoticed. And this was because a professor was walking with his pupil and they were in a deep, serious conversation, but he suddenly, his thoughts were interrupted by an unexpected flow of memories from his early childhood. And word for word, he cannot account for it as he was unable to discover any associative connection with the subject of his conversation. So he looked towards his environment and then he saw a farm, and then that's how he was able to realize where his source of subliminal interruption of thought came from. And so him and his pupil walked towards the farm. And so I find it really, really interesting. On page 78, Cole Young said, forgetting may be defined as temporarily subliminal contents remaining outside the range of vision against one's will. And when we say vision, I'm assuming he meant mental vision. But the forgotten contents have not ceased to exist. Although they cannot be reproduced, they are present in a subliminal state from which they can rise up randomly at any time, often after many years, and they can be fetched by hypnosis. And I think I will stop right there because it gets shockingly interesting once you connect each situation to what Denzel just stated.
And I made a tailor-made fortune cookie. And as all the guests are over, this specific person, I give them the tailor-made cookie. And when we all crack open the cookies together and we're reading the fortunes and all of that, and it could be just for fun, this person's might be so specific to theirs that they might take it seriously and then they might do something with it. I might know that that person needs some sort of sign from the universe, from God, to finally start this company, and they've been waiting for so long, but they're not receiving that sign. So now I put this fortune inside their cookie or whatever, and it's like, whoa. And of course, this depends on the type of individual that you are. This could be a manipulative tactic, which is used by a lot of people in general, and so I'm not always used in a good way. Then it also could be that sign that's necessary. Somebody could see it as a vessel that was used by God to be able to translate this message to get this person to finally start their business. Have you ever had a dream and then just did the SE thing where it's like, it doesn't mean anything? A lot of times, maybe it really doesn't mean anything. But when it comes to me, everything always means something. And I'll repeat that. When it comes to me, introverted intuition, everything always means something. It's not a coincidence that you had this dream. And as random as it might seem like, your subconscious is trying to tell you something. And if you take some time to listen to it, if you take some time to decode it, to decipher it, to see what's going on over there, that very meaning that you received is exactly what God was trying to tell you. Some people get triggered by the word God, so we'll say spirit is trying to tell you. Or some people might get triggered by that. Source is trying to tell you. Okay, fine.
And it's very interesting. Very, very interesting. All that talk about subliminals came from um, the section of the book where it was titled Symbols and the Interpretation of Dreams. Between the pages I mentioned, 85 or 78, like between those pages, maybe before or after those pages, Carl Jung mentioned how there's a practical use to intuition, but there's also a subliminal, bigger, bigger meaning to intuition. And I thought it was very interesting. My goal with my channel is to make intuition more practical because I don't think it's practical enough in this world, and I think it should be practical use. But at the same time, even I made the mistake of not, and it's not a mistake, but and I being my hero function, it made me see how I am making a mistake in a way by pursuing the goal of making intuition a practical use. I'm still going to do it though. But with SI or with any functions, there's a subliminal aspect to it that we are not aware of, a transcending aspect to it that we are not all aware of. And it's not just NI, it's a lot of things. So that's all I want to say. So, like Denzel say, when it comes to me, everything has a meaning, and there's a logic to that statement. Now, I'm assuming he doesn't mean everything, clearly, but I have to say that as a disclaimer. And maybe he's a person that does uh become aware of the subliminal aspect of NI more than I do. So that is something I also need to mention.
If you don't like that term, how about your ancestors? It's trying to tell you. Okay, maybe not even that. Okay, your intuition is trying to tell you. Now, somebody might be like, why do you keep on interchanging all of these things? The thing is, when we shift paradigms, then we're able to see that a lot of these things that we're referring to are kind of like the same thing. Let me give you an example. If I were to show you a circle that was the color as we know it, red, and then I wrote into the circle blue, that'd be quite confusing for some people now, wouldn't it be? See, a lot of times in our world, we tend to look at things and we all might see the exact same thing, but then our own interpretations will create our worldview. And then enough of that worldview being collected creates a paradigm. A paradigm is now what we might call Plato's allegory of the cave, not even knowing that you are in your own type of world, perceiving the world in a certain type of way. We see this a lot in religious systems. So let's just say, hypothetically, if I grew up believing that dogs are vicious creatures that were always just trying to attack people, and my family like instilled this in me, and one day I went off to a home with some friends, and as I'm hanging out with my friends, there's a dog in the distance of the home, and the dog spots me and it fixates on me as opposed to all of my other friends. Now, my mind might tell me, like, oh, it's because the dog knows that I'm onto its tactics and everything like that. When in actuality, the dog probably is just aware that I'm acting irregularly from the rest of the friends who are not really acknowledging it in that way. but my fear is coming off to the dog, which is making the dog also a little bit fearful. And then if the dog now decides to lash out at me and attack me, it further instills this mindset that dogs are vicious, dogs are evil. And I go home and I tell my family, yes, the dog attacked me and this, that, and boom, boom, boom. And then somebody might say, well, then how come the dog only attacked you, but not your friends? And might think to myself, well, it's because I was the only one who was on to what that dog was up to. Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. But that's done to say that it's the absolute truth. That's your paradigm. What if the dog was really just afraid of you because you were the only one that was acting weird? And so what you thought was discernment because the dog was fixated on you was in reality just the dog being fearful of you because you already had these preconceived notions about the dog to begin with, which then created a self fulfilling prophecy that now instilled your belief even more. Now let's take this into the spiritual realm. And let's say that dogs are what we now call demons. Are you catching my drift here? Now, of course, maybe demons actually exist and they are as vicious as you might think that they are. But then, from another person's paradigm, demons are just spirits that are dogs, they're like animals that can shift and change based on how you treat them. And they're not even really called demons, they're just normal spirits that are neutral. Think about that. Now, let's think about meditation, really getting into yourself, really coming to understand your own insight. When you sit in silence, the thoughts that start to become clear, the thoughts that start to swirl and then settle down, that's usually where I come in the best, like a flash of lightning. When you have your best epiphanies, those thoughts that you have in the shower, when you're struck with an idea, when you're struck with an insight, when you're struck with a sudden realization of what somebody might be going through. That is me at play. But this often requires either hypnotism of the sensory or a complete shutdown of the sensory. I do not work my best when I am overwhelmed with sensory information. If I'm in a very loud area with a whole bunch of different types of smells and different lights and just a lot of like overwhelming sensory information, then it's hard for me, introverted intuition, to really gain my best insights, to really give my best epiphanies of life. And that's why sometimes I try to get as far away as I can from SE, my Siamese twin. But if I stay away from SE for too long, then my insights start to become stale. They start to become dry. I'm not experiencing enough reality to be able to properly interpret reality. How can my insights now be trusted if I just keep on rejecting reality? I'm way too untethered from reality. I'm not grounded enough. Let's talk a little bit more about this when it comes to our tarot cards, shall we? Let's first look at the High Priestess here. If you observe her, you'll see that she's actually sitting in front of a veil. This veil is actually said to be separation between the material realm and the spiritual realm, where the high priestess can dwell and move seamlessly through very effortlessly. And then when you look even closer, you'll see that she's sitting in between two pillars. Black one that's represented for Boaz, and then the white one that's represented for Jachin. And these, in essence, also stand for duality. The black one representing more for a negation, like no, and then the white one representing for yes. She's seated perfectly in between. There's so much symbolism here. Even looking at the cross there, some may look at it and then their symbol could be, oh, Jesus Christ, which is a whole symbol in and of itself. Others will look at it and see that it's actually the meeting of the horizontal and the vertical, which is kind of the dissection of the horizontal plane.
Look at it from a Christian perspective. There's two different types of crosses, at least main crosses. Let's see if I can search up what kind of cross that is. So, the two most universally recognized types of crosses are the Latin cross and the Greek cross. And the cross the woman has, let me see, is the Greek cross. So, this image is very specific. I guess if you can look hard at it enough, you can somehow imagine it into a, a Latin cross. But no, it looks like a Greek cross.
which is the material realm, and then the vertical plane, which is the heavens meeting the earth, the spiritual realm. Let's look at another card here.
So this is where I'm going to stop the video, and I would like to read some things to conclude this reaction series thus far. I will return with reaction videos in the future, but I will be taking a pause because reaction videos does take a lot of investment. I'm a I am a NI user, so I am investing myself as I react to these videos and actually contributing to the conversation in a way that makes sense and hopefully that is fun to listen to. So, reading the definition of intuition as stated by Carl Jung on page 567 from the same book, Psychological Types or the Psychology of Individuation. Intuition is from the term inturi, which means to look into or upon. In a way, SI do it too, but let me see if I can distinguish the two further. Although intuition, any one content is presented as a complete whole without our being able to explain or discover in what way this content has been arrived at. Intuition is a kind of instinctive apprehension, irrespective of the nature of its contents. Like sensation, it is an irrational perceptive function. Which leads me back to explaining tarot cards' relation to intuition. Yes, it is true that many people use tarot cards to predict the future. But since NI is my personality type and I look towards the future regardless of the nature of the content as stated in the definition of intuition. This is why I don't consider the use of tarot cards as a divinity tool, but just a practical tool. I hope that makes sense. It was very interesting how Cole Young mentioned, as a rule, the introverted intuitive stops at perception. And I could say, yes, that is true. I do experience a lot. So tarot cards helps me to look into or upon things. As stated in the passage, through intuition, any one content is presented as a complete whole, which tarot cards do come as a complete whole. without our being able to explain or discover in what way this content has been arrived at, which which can be true for tarot cards as well. Intuition is a kind of instinctive apprehension, irrespective of the nature of its content. Uh, which is true. I do have a instinctive way of being worried or having anxiety regardless of the nature of the content being physical or concrete or abstract, regardless. So I can relate to that. Since Denzel had pulled out cards, uh the tarot cards that my followers and viewers can see on the screen is a tarot card deck I own, and I am gonna pull one card to see an answer, an answer I can come up with, because I feel worried that I haven't expressed fully what I want to express. And so I'm opening up this card deck. I had this for a while, but hopefully this is a good sounding ASMR. This is a brand new deck, and I'm gonna pull one single card to complete this video. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A card got pulled for me. So I wanted to pull one card, but I ended up pulling 3 cards instead. So let's dissect these 3 tarot cards. I pulled the Hierophant with the food and pen display on it. Next is the Lovers. Display on it is Valentine's chocolate, while the Chariot have rabbit ragu display on the card. So starting with the first card with the and pen, the card in general upright means faith, compliance, cultural practice. And pen represents tradition and religion. In Japan, anko or bean paste was eaten by monks as part of a religious diet. The sweet bean paste made its way into sweets eventually and is now known as one of the traditional flavors of Japanese dessert cuisine. It's such a cultural icon that the superhero and Pen Man is literally made out of this sweet bean bun. If this card is you, it's time to explore and learn from formal doctrines or clearly established areas of knowledge, and no taking any shortcuts. This classic bun is a classic for a reason. If you aren't interested in following tradition, ask yourself what it is about these institutions that you want to question and why you're feeling this way. I thought it was pretty interesting that this is the card I pull because I'm already doing that. I am trying to follow tradition by reading Cole's Young work in in order to make sure I understand his perspective of what NI is before NI became a personality function for MBTI. When it comes to the Hierophant in general, uh, when it has a person on it, it is a person who interprets sacred mysteries or arcanic principles. And that is what I would like to do for my channel. And that is how I view Carl Jung. Next, we're gonna dissect the Lovers card. On it, it's Valentine's chocolate. And it's stated, when it's upright, it is love, connection, and choice. Valentine's Day chocolate, especially in anime, is a risky business. With the presentation of the sweet to a crush, you balance on the edge between success or failure, which is a scary place to be. If you're like Sakura from Card Captor Sakura show, who values her friends and family above all else, the choice is clear. Chocolate must be given to let her loved ones know how she feels and how much she wants to celebrate the special bond they have, particularly with her crush. I can't pronounce that. I'm going to try it. Seiron. A Seiron. She places her trust in him and takes the leap of faith with her chocolate heart. Sakura found success, but that risk of failure is always possible. If you find yourself reaching out to a loved one and feel like you're missing a connection instead, stop to consider where the misalignment lies. And I guess it does make sense for me in the sense of I love being an I, but there's a misalignment and I'm trying to align myself, if that makes sense. The Lover's card in general represents deep connection, meaningful partnerships, and profound choices. And what's very interesting about chocolate, Valentine's Day chocolate in general, is can provide complex sensation to the mouth. The lover is complex. Depriving NI of sensory experience in order to get to the NI is just another way of disrespecting the sensory. I'm sorry, I have to go there. But it's just another way of disrespecting the sensory. What if for NI to be much more practical and used often, we find a way to create that connection between the NI, the balance between the NI and the sensory. That is already a thing many INFJ, INTJ, or any NI dominant person try to do. And I will not argue that. But at the same time, why am I struggling? Why am I struggling to reach out to the sensory as an NI user? It's just, there's just a misalignment. And going back to tradition and how it's done in the past, I believe will help that further. It is true, all personality type will by mistake disrespect their least used functions, even if that function happened to be their parent. their auxiliary function, their least used function. But I would like to consider where the misalignment is. And then the last card is the Chariot, with the meal rabbit ragu. So in general, upright, it's command, self-discipline, and persistence. Rabbit ragu is one of the most rare meals you can have in Sword Art Online. Not only is the meat difficult to find, but you need to have advanced cooking skills to prepare it properly. As such, this meal is representative of decisive action and determination. Kiroto had to think quickly and move with precision to take down the rabbit, and Asiana, um, it's been a while since I watched the show. Asana, Asuna had to have perfect control over herself and the kitchen as she cooked the stew for the two of them. Similar, sim, Similarly, it's time for you to take action and pursue your goals no matter what obstacles you encounter. You are pushing forward but feel like you're not getting anywhere. Pull back to adjust course and pick a new plan of action. And in general, the chariot card is the ultimate tarot symbol of willpower, determination, and triumph. But even though it is a card of that meaning, the rabbit ragu aspect of the enemy food tarot is basically saying if you are pushing forward but feel like you're not getting anywhere, as stated, pull back to adjust course and pick a new plan of action. And that's what I would like to do. And I will continue to do that. And I will continue to make this work. And I will continue to be NI. And that is okay. To pull back, to adjust course, and pick a new plan of action. Both feminine and masculine NI, regardless of who it is, struggle with pulling back to adjust course and plan and pick a new plan of action. But that is what we all need to do. Anyone with dominant or auxiliary NI, even if you don't have it as an auxiliary, NI is your inner world. It's how you perceive yourself. It's personal. In general, even as a demon. The people with NI as a blind spot, this advice can work, but they don't have to worry that much as the people who don't have NI as a blind spot. If you are pushing for it but feel like you're not getting anywhere, pull back to adjust course and pick a new plan of action. It is okay. And when you're feeling stuck and you don't want to do that, think of the show Sword Art Online. Or you can watch the show just to make yourself feel better. And think of the rabbit ragu. You have the persistence, you have the self discipline, you have the command. Give yourself the love, give yourself time to connect, give yourself the choice. Have the faith, still comply when necessary. Don't forget the root, and the root being the cultural practice, whatever cultural practice, it doesn't have to be Japanese, but eat traditional culture food if that's what needs to help you have faith and compliance, which is true in my experience. When I eat my cultural food, I seem to have more faith in general. And this heightened sense of faith leads me to feeling more connected and more love. And feeling more connected and more love gives me the stable ground to adjust the course that I'm on, pivot, new directions. That is all okay. Sorry it took me forever to explain that, but that is the end of my video. Anyways, I hope my viewers were able to enjoy this video. I talk a lot. This is my longest reaction video, I believe. Yeah, that's all I have to say for the matter. Thank you, Denzel, for that very insightful conversation about having his viewers, including me and my viewers, meet introverted intuition to deepen our understanding and see how it can relate back to us. I will link the original video to my video in the description box below, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And you are welcome to Love All Ember 2 with me. Bye bye, everyone.